My promise for this webinar is that by the end, you will not only know more than most of the doctors right now about EBV and why you're not getting better and why it's not your fault, but I will share the way out with you. How many of you actually would like to get rid of EBV? Information is great, but what about actually healing from EBV? Because that's the promise I bring. I'm going to present you the truth, factual truth. Anything that I say in this webinar, you can verify in medical literature and also through my experience in my clinics. The purpose of this webinar is to share about autoimmunities. And for me, the vision for you is to have your life back, to be able to bike, to be able to jog with your dog, to be able to go for that dream job, to be able to hold that job, to be able to get a good night's sleep and actually get up in the morning deeply rested. That's what I want for you. To be able to drive without an anxiety attack. To be able to experience a day without nagging pain, the mystery pain of 30 years. To not have painful lymph and neck, to be able to move it. To get rid of the buzzing, neuropathy, tingling, the ringing in your ears constantly, or being dizzy, the brain fog when you can't think, finish the sentence, or going to a store and not crashing afterwards. This is what I see happening. I'm going to be very honest with you. Oftentimes, the virus takes away your life and you become so entrenched in it, you lose your identity. You feel trapped by it, but you're so much more than this virus. People tell me all the time that they want to get rid of it. They want to change. And yes, in our clinic, we have the solution, but I'm asking you in advance, are you willing for your life to become different? Because in order to have that different life, in order to heal from EBV, live without the fear, know what to do, you have to do things different from what you're currently doing. So I'm just going to plant the seed for you because good things are coming. But where you are right now is not going to take you all the way. We have to make changes. So we're going to talk about why you're not getting better. We're going to talk about autoimmunity. Your body is infinitely intelligent, never acts against you. And the only purpose it has is to keep you alive. It's been working so hard for you, trying to get this virus to stall. I need you to love your body. I need you to understand that it's your best friend. I want you to stop being afraid and feel that you're betrayed and you can't trust your body, please. I need you to say cancel, cancel anytime you come up with that thought, or put a rubber band around your wrist and snap it every time that thought comes, because it doesn't serve you. And yes, it is personal. It's always personal. I'm not a wounded healer. I've never tested EBV. I don't need to. I know what to do. Anyway, but I lost one of my best friends. I remember December 24th, 2014. I called Marlena as usual. The Vigilia is the most important day of the year for Polish people, and Marlena was in Poland. I was already living in the States, and I was calling her as usual to wish her Merry Christmas. And that time, I could not understand what she was saying. She was losing her ability to talk. Her son had to take over, and it was the last conversation I had with her. It was heartbreaking because I felt hopeless, angry, because she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis just out of the blue, like you or me or anyone else. And she died of complication. We lost her. She left a hole in my heart. However, she also fired me up. And I think the reason why I'm standing in front of you right now is because she must have pulled a lot of strings in heaven to create coincidence after coincidence for me to be able to provide the service and come up with these solutions. I can't explain it any other way. My aha moment was when a couple of my clients actually around the same time asked me to give their educated opinion on this medical medium book. My aha moment was when I was reading the book and said, these are my clients. So I never looked back. I just started to look at research. I started to analyze lab interpretation. I started to ask my clients to test, and the rest is history. We have this common thread of so much pain, so much money, so many doctors, and each time you have trust, you think this will be the one. After a couple of years of working intensely on this, I created a methodology, Turnkey Solutions. I'm all about solutions. And we reverse engineered the virus. This is one of my magic moments in the picture right after a webinar that I delivered to practitioners about EBV. You can see mapping of it. My name is Kasia Kainz. I'm a doctor of clinical functional nutrition. There's only 30 people with my degree on this planet. It's a very unique training. I was also trained at Bastyr University before. I have become an international leader in evidence-based recovery methodology for this virus. I founded Global EBV Institute. I founded EBV Educational Institute in Marlena's memory. I help people with EBV just like you actually heal from this virus and get their lives back. And I also train clinicians in that methodology. I lecture to the medical community whenever I get a chance. I'm on a mission to provide the solution to anyone that is ready globally with education, with program, with a book, so people don't suffer needlessly, don't die of complications, possibly like Marlena. Just to verify, I have been in this field since 2005. I'm very committed. I've worked with some of the best people, trained under some of the best people in the country. The first thing we created was the EBV help website. All the resources are available right there. I don't want people to spend time searching around for some kind of coherent information about the virus. It's all here. This is evidence-based as well. And of course, we have the book. Here's the book. It's pretty big. It is on Amazon. About 1/3 of it is research. So this is for medical doctors. They have everything in one house. And then 2/3 is actually the recovery. My goal for this webinar is to show you the shortest way to recovery from chronic or acute EBV. The next 40 minutes will be focused on the presentation. We're going to talk about testing as well. We're going to talk about why you're not getting the right help. And we're going to talk about strategies. I'm going to give you an example of how it's very easy to say supplements don't work, this doesn't work, I tried everything. Well, you haven't. You have to be strategic. With this virus, if we're smarter than the virus, we have a strategy and we can hit it. And I'm going to show you how in our institute we hit it from all sides. I'm going to start with some of the frustrating parts that I can't stand. Myth number one, it's in your head, you're just depressed. Get some exercise, you're going to feel better. Ooh, wrong. Your labs are fine. You only had it in the past, just like most of us. It's just a hype. If you don't have mono, you don't have EBV. Anybody? Yes. They don't believe it's real? Yes. My doctor told me I was just depressed? Yes. I want you to not be frustrated with that community. If there's ego in the doctor, obviously fire the doctor and hire another. But if the doctor cannot help you, I want to explain to you why, so you don't have a lot of frustrations towards them. One of the reasons is that medical information, when there's new research, takes about 15 years to become practice in medical clinic. In other words, let's say this book has all the information and research. It doesn't mean that your doctor will see it and utilize it in medical practice tomorrow. What your doctor is saying is based on their experience, their antiquated training, and it is denial. So this is not really factual, but that's what the doctors believe. Now let's look at the medical literature. What do researchers actually say? If you have idiopathic cases, which means doctors have no idea what the cause is, consider chronic active EBV or severe chronic active EBV. Chronic illness, which cannot be explained by other disease processes at diagnosis, that's where you expect chronic EBV. So how is it a hype? I know one of the explanations for hype concept is probably medical medium. Is anybody familiar with medical medium books? I want people to know what to do. Undeniably research-based. So whatever I could verify that medical medium was claiming, I was looking for research. So how is it a hype if 95 plus of global population have the virus? We have 3 million reported cases of mono. Mono is the acute version of it per year. In the States alone, you have to add more for unreported. We have autoimmunity on the rise. That's one of the worst things that is happening right now in any country that can cause cancer. There are 200,000 cases of EBV-caused cancer per year globally, and 40,000 of these people die. This is all statistics from many years ago. I don't have the new one. And how is it a hype if the global research community is looking for a vaccination? There's many conditions that are associated. We're not sure if they're caused by the virus, but they're strongly associated. Dr. Harley is one of the persons that I want to meet in person. He had a fascinating study just about 2 years ago when he tracked 7 very common autoimmune disorders. He tracked it directly to a protein in the virus causing it. So if you have particular genes for any of those 7 autoimmune disorders, you may suddenly express that autoimmune disorder because of EBV. Rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, which is Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, juvenile idiopathic arthritis, celiac, multiple sclerosis, lupus, type 1 diabetes. Does anyone here have any of those conditions, or maybe more than one? Hashimoto's, yes, Hashimoto's actually is also on the list, not in that study. You have 4-6 patients with lupus, Barbara, and there's your celiac. You know, there's many reasons for celiac, there's many reasons for MS, but EBV is clearly one of them. Fibromyalgia can be as well. These are some charts straight from my book. As you can see here, you can have misdiagnosis, including Lyme disease. You have a longer list of autoimmune disorders here. Alphabetically, there's a lot of brain inflammatory conditions, even encephalitis. There's specific types of cancer, like 10% of stomach cancer is caused by EBV. This is the percentage of people that present certain symptom on the left. Who knew? 75% headaches, sore throat, 95%, because that's the entry of the virus. And we're going to talk about what you can do. I have my aloe here. I'll be drinking. It's fabulous for your throat and for that lymph. All kinds of presentations, as you can see. I pulled these on the left from medical research and from my experience. On our website in the quiz, I include these because people don't realize people have weird presentations. Severe sensitivity to mosquito bites, hearing loss, lack of balance. How do we, put everyone in one basket? Testing, right? Testing. You gotta test, which brings me to the topic. There's a couple of problems with testing. First of all, there is resistance to testing. Some doctors are aware of medical medium and are irritated by it because of the messenger. So, they may not believe it. They get irritated, and it's like 95% of us have had the virus. What's the point of me testing you? It's going to come positive, and it's going to be a waste of my time and your money. So that was so frustrated to the point where on our EBV website, we now have a button and we have a relationship with a direct-to-consumer lab. And no matter where you are in the States, you can click, pay out of pocket, no doctors, you go to a local lab, you get a report in email within 24 hours, outstanding service, and you know exactly where you are, and you can do it anytime you need to. Complete independence and empowerment. Now, the common labs are 3 markers, sometimes 2. How many times have you been tested when only 2 or 3 markers were tested? And how many times all 4 antibodies? Now, who has been tested for PCR? This is DNA, looking for DNA of the virus in the blood. I'm going to teach you today, the virus doesn't linger in your blood. A few short weeks, it orients itself. Where does it go? Why do you have Hashimoto's? Because it's in your thyroid. Why you have encephalitis? Because it's in your brain. Why do you have hepatitis? Because it's in your liver. Why do you have connective tissue disorder? Because it goes into your connective tissue. Wherever it goes, it's not going to stay in your blood. So PCR can be false negative. So I would never rely on my life knowing what's going on with me on PCR, and it can be expensive. I scratch it out because in medical literature, they're looking at initial infection and only the first few weeks, not reactivation. It's not that reliable, okay? And then there's the lab interpretation. So let's talk about that. That can be confusing for the doctor. Again, they're just going by what the lab presents. There is interpretation on the report. That's what they go by. They don't think, they don't read the literature, they don't understand. So let's take a look at it. You have that in my book as well. We also have it on our EBV help website. We have a complete page with all kinds of scenarios of lab reports. We also have a pop-up 15-minute video when I walk through these things in detail, because there's different scenarios, right? Everybody's different. Sometimes there's irregularity. We have 4 markers. Number 5 is rare. If you're lucky, get it, but chances are you won't. So let's go through 1 through 4. Doctors think that VCA-IgM is the only current reinfection. You can see it's the black line. It's the biggest during the initial infection. And then over the years, you can see reactivation. It bumps up a little bit. I can tell you clinically, what's clinically relevant is that VCA-IgM is expected to be negative or normal if you have chronic EBV. It's just not going to keep bumping up, only initially. And number 2 and number 3, the red and the green, and these are here to stay. You're going to have them for probably the rest of your life. Do not expect to have them back to 0. It's never going to happen, okay? And you can have a quality of life. You can turn down the virus. But you can see that they will bump higher if you have reactivation. Now, I'm going to answer an expected question. What happens if I have the more than 600 scenario? And the most important thing I want to tell you about this is that just because every time you test, it's still more than 600, doesn't mean that whatever you're doing is not working or you're failing. If at the same time you're feeling better, working very hard, you have a recovery process, you're healing from the virus, and these are notoriously more than 600. What you don't know is that initially they may have been 7,000, they may have been 2,000, but maybe eventually they will drop below that threshold. So you're going to start seeing the number and it's going to fluctuate. Now, the most important one, the one that they typically miss is the number 4, early antigen. The single most important one that you never want to skip, because you won't know your status. Because this is a little bump in reactivation. I remember a story of one of my students who was saying we have a classic presentation of EBV in my patient. She has Hashimoto's, he has all these symptoms, he has all this history. Her early antigen is normal. What do we do? I mean, is it EBV or not? So I asked her the question, think about that. When did she test? January. When did she feel like the track ran her over? Guess what the answer was? Thanksgiving. For many obvious reasons, right? Food, stress, family. Okay, so Heather's a classic example of what happens when you lose a number of years of your life because of the mismanagement and misinformation, and what happens when you actually learn to where to test, what to test, how to read your test. You are completely independent and empowered. You can do it. So she's no longer confused, misled, and alone. She has the clarity. She knows where to get their support. The feeling of being hit by the truck no longer has that. She's able to work again. The brain fog was extreme. She wasn't able to fly on a plane or drive. She also had ringing in the ears constantly. And so all that is gone. She's driving no problem. She was also feeling like a failing parent. She was just, she was saying, I'm just on the sofa watching my husband and my children. She could only handle 1-minute walks, if that, and then she would crash. Now she can walk 20 minutes, no problem, comes back home, perfectly fine. And she hasn't reactivated because she knows how to manage her life better. So we talked about the hype. Now we're going to talk about the doctor again. Most doctors won't be able to help you. Number 1, I told you about the epidemic. Your doctor doesn't know about this epidemic. They can't see the umbrella over it. They just look at individual conditions. What options do your doctor have? You tell me, you guys, from your experience. What do they tell you? Rest and drink water. Exactly. Rest, antiviral, nothing. Okay, so there is one medication. It's an antiviral medication. I'm going to tell you right away, if you look at medical literature, it doesn't have high efficacy. It doesn't move the needle all the way. Your doctor's not aware that there is recovery. It is completely possible. If you look through functional medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, they use botanical medicine a lot. And it's, again, hit and miss. Functional medicine doctors, they tell me they try combination of antiviral medication, maybe homeopathy and herbal medicine, and notorious get partial results. And I can tell you honestly, when I presented a poster at the international conference for autoimmunity for the Institute for Functional Medicine, we had a slot of 30 minutes. I was there for 1 hour, and the doctors were just standing around me and they wouldn't leave. They had so many questions. In the functional medicine world, doctors are looking for this information. The information is coming. Now, I'm going to present 3 scientific slides for you. This is the most important piece that I want you to take away for the rest of your life. You see 2 B cells. On top, you see a B cell that is infected. Inside, you have the virus, and it's lysing. Lysing means shedding, bursting open, and the viruses are spilling. The new young virions, they're called. They're going into the bloodstream, and they're looking for your tissues or your thyroid or somewhere. They're looking for a condo to implant themselves and live there. So that's where you have reactivation. Now below is the resting B cells. The B cell is your immune cell. So the resting B cell means it's infected, but it's not bursting. So that's the latency. As you notice, there's viruses inside that cell. The problem is it turns off all the mechanisms that cells have to self-terminate. They can terminate themselves when they're sick, or they can contact their other immune cells for help to say, come and kill me because I'm infected, I'm dangerous. All this is stopped. So the B cells in perpetuation are floating there with all this viral information. Now, listen to this. It looks like it's dormant, waiting to lyse, right? But it's not exactly what happens. Latent mechanisms are responsible for sustained infections. EBV relies more on clonal replication of infected B cells for maintenance of infection in the host cell. Basically, it's almost like cancer cells. The B cells will continue cloning, and as they clone themselves over the span of your lifetime, the more of these B cells are replicating, the more profound lysing will be, the more of the virons will be spilling. Now, the problem is also that, as you know, in your life, up and down, you're never quite well, but you just go between those. So the process between lysing and latency can happen anytime, once a week, once a month, hopefully once every 10 years or never. So when we work in our institute with people with chronic EBV, my first goal is stall all the processes related to EBV activity and EBV replication. Number 2, prevent future lysing. 3, when that lysing starts to happen, which is when you start sliding, we trained immediately how to stall this process. So as you start developing the symptoms, also learn common triggers. Then we can zap it with the right acute protocol within 1 or 3 days, so it never goes into fruition and stops shedding. This is the healing. This is the recovery. This is what happens. This is the goal. Now, in view of what I've told you, if you hear just rest, sleep, and wait, nothing else you can do, and after a few weeks, you will get back to your life. Some people may, but in our community is those people that never recover back to baseline. So of course, it's instrumental. You have to rest. But waiting out, not so much. Now you understand why. In fact, in medical literature, we have chronic mononucleosis. Do you think it sounds a little bit like another condition when you're always fatigued? Yes, exactly, chronic fatigue syndrome. And there's a lot of overlap in literature between those two. Chronic fatigue syndrome, in fact, is a classic presentation of EBV. So to kind of wrap it up with a bow, recovery and reversal of EBV is absolutely possible. I've seen it, and I remember I was just ready to get the book online on Amazon. And I stumbled upon Dr. Flavin's amazing study. I was able to incorporate treatable and reversible. That's what it is when you actually get the right information, right support. And the third thing I promised you, we're going to discuss a little bit why are you failing possibly with supplements. You have to be so strategic with supplements, just like with everything else with this virus, because it's so smart. The supplements play a huge role if you actually nail them. And this is a common story. Kate's an amazing woman, and I see this trajectory so often, so I want to tell you the story. Middle-aged mom, high achiever, professional, and we worked together years before for her IBS, and she was doing great. She had great diet, lots of plants, whole foods diet, great supplements, maintaining her conditions. Out of the blue, she emailed me and she felt awful. Each day was a struggle, exhausted, depressed. I honestly thought my body at 47 had turned in its pink slip and was ready to shut down. How scary it is to think that you're dying before you even hit 50. She didn't tell me that at the time. She wrote it later. Once she healed, she recovered. Now the thing is, she got lucky. She got tested immediately, both for Hashimoto's and EBV, and both were positive. So I immediately sent her book. I sent her the manuscript. And the first thing that immediately we hit running with was supplements. So let's talk about the supplements. I want you to spend every penny wisely. People take wrong dosages, wrong forms, wrong times, wrong combinations. Sometimes you have to take them with food or not. As I said to you before, I have a problem with botanical medicine. Botanical medicine is great as an adjunct, but you can't really rely on it completely to heal from this virus. Let me tell you why. First of all, I have a degree in clinical nutrition. So my hammer and my nail is nutrients. I see nutrients everywhere. And what medical community doesn't remember or appreciate is your immune cells require nutrients. They require building blocks. And so if we don't improve the diet, you're not going to build your immune system. It's in our recovery program. You can learn all that. But the bottom line is, if you have one crappy meal in a fast food joint, you can increase NF-kappa B for 2 hours by 150%. NF-kappa B is an inflammatory marker. The more NF-kappa B you have, the more EBV can hijack it to replicate. NF-kappa B is your virus's favorite place to replicate. That's one, we can't afford to have crappy diet. But number two, we are deficient, and sometimes severely deficient, in very basic nutrients. That's research. If you look at medical research, if your nutritional status drops, your virus becomes more virulent, more aggressive. So that's why for me, the best strategy for a very strong and very fast application of supplements is if we base the supplements on, number one, do they have nutritional value? So can they actually jump right into the cellular structure and support immune cells? Because if you have a good immune system, so much easier not to have to deal with the virus, right? And number two, are any of these nutrients also delivering an anti-EBV activity? So my choices are always from medical literature. I give you an example of selenium rather than an herb, because herb may not have the nutrient. It may not multitask. Is anybody taking selenium? Brazil nuts are not reliable. If I had a health problem, I would want standard dose. Even I take some selenium for many, many reasons. Your thyroid, your detox, your liver, your glutathione. So you see that's just one. But also you need it at a high dose. You need to be strategic. And then you need to line up all the other heavy hitters from different angles at the same time. So what happened to Kay? My energy came back. My depression lifted. I got EBV under control. I also put the Hashimoto's into remission, of course, because in her case, her Hashimoto was actually caused by EBV. So that's what we focused on. Doesn't matter how many medications you take. If that's what's driving it, you're not going to hit it. I didn't know such a miracle was even possible. What an empowering gift. She also told me one thing, you know, I thought I was crazy and I thought I was dying. And through this whole process, I realized I was just sick. It was so freeing. She's doing great. So here's my audacious vision for you of healing and recovery. My job is to actually show you how to get out of this hunk, not just to provide information. We call it EBV Recovery Program. We've gone through this process so many times with my clients, with our students, repeatedly. If you follow the process, focus on it, even if you're sick, and continue on the process for 3 months, there's nowhere for the virus to go. If you have EBV, we're going to stall it, stop it, you're going to start recovery. Sometimes full recovery in 3 months, sometimes half the way. Over the years, what I figured out is 5 simple steps, and each step, it's really strategic. There's more on the website I'm going to show you so you can read about that, but the bottom line is, if I'm going for food, I'm going for the right foods. If I'm going for supplements, you already know, we hit the virus. Stress, sleep, toxicity, there's special toxins, environmental toxins like Wi-Fi technology or mold that really makes this virus worse and more resistant. And so there are complications that I see notoriously. The grand plan, in order to outsmart the virus, we first build building blocks through these 5 steps, but then we also have a backup plan in case you have those complications. My goal is to make your body invincible. Invincible is my favorite word, because as we're starting to set the stage and build those building blocks, you go through all the foods, you customize it, here's where I need to be. You go through supplements, customize it, here's where I'm comfortable, here's where I'm gonna hit it. And suddenly you turn down the volume of the virus. That's the real healing, because it's empowering and freeing. On top of that, it's fun. The video recordings with the students from before are fun. The recipes are delicious. We have a set of about 65, my favorites, but then we have almost 1,000 other ones in a database we created. We go over deeper healing processes. That's why I'm talking about not just recovery, but healing. You're gonna smile, you're gonna cry, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna heal. We have 10 modules. You can set your pace, everything is open. This is setting you for success. We have checklists. We explain to you where to focus. We have 2 modules with resources for food, kitchen. This is a snapshot of 1 module resources. We have a zip file when you can download everything in 1 click. I help you strategize each module, where to look, where to go. We spend a lot of time on the brain fog issues. We add adjuncts, herbal teas, spices, and kitchen herbs. We have a beautiful module 4, which is supplements. You can start with that immediately, no matter where you are, and within 2 or 3 weeks, you should start seeing the needle move. Stress is number 1 trigger, so we have to tackle that appropriately. Sleep, if you don't sleep, you won't recover. We address that, and we go through different scenarios. You can customize which case is me, how do I work through that. I told you about environmental toxins, how do we deal internally and in our environment. I also told you I love the concept of healing for you, deeper healing. When I told you at the beginning that my audacious vision for you is to go for that dream job, for example, I was intentional, because when you start healing deeper, you can actually start dreaming. Who do you want to be? What is your purpose on this planet? If I'm well, what do I want to do? Do I want to have the same job I had before I got sick? Or do I have a dream of something else, or being a healer? A lot of people in our community are actually healers. And the concept of wounded healer, sometimes you have to go through the wounds in order to understand that you are a healer, you have that gift, and you can give it, but you have to be well. And then wrapping up in the last module, where I teach you about this reactivation and lysing, how to prevent it, how to look for reactivating factor. You're going to learn all that. You're going to know so much about your body and your processes and where your EBV is. You'll be part of our EBV Hero community. In our private group, this is your community and your tribe. The people post their challenges, their celebrations. We share, we celebrate each other. Monthly live calls, the first Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. PT Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We used to do them every week. We have tons of recording for you. We've run, I think, 5 groups. If you're really, really struggling and you're really, really sick, you have reactivation right now, turn on your laptop or computer, lie down and watch or listen. We have audio version, we have video versions, and I also used to type my notes in PDF for people based on our conversation. We have tons of these in your database, so you can pick and choose. At the end of each Q&A, we had EBV Hero Spotlight for one student. For 20 minutes, we would strategize one-on-one. Everybody would be contributing and listening. This was the best part of the program for everyone because we learned so much from the individual stories when they were struggling and where they need to clarify things. I really recommend going from 1 to 10, but everything is open, so you can jump if you can't sleep. Go into the sleep module right away. Of course, you need to sleep. We have an expansive library and bonuses I'm going to show you. Let me tell you a story of one of our graduates. Sue was a nurse when she reached out to us. She had been hospitalized. She had viral encephalitis. When she was in hospital, she was actually reading the book. And that was the only hope she had. The doctors wanted to wait and see. When she waited to see in hospital, she lost her hearing in one ear completely. She was so distraught. She says, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm just going to apply this book. And so she found me online and she realized we were running a group. And this was actually the very first group we ran, our beta group. She jumped and she actually did everything. We were able to stop the deterioration of hearing loss in the other ear. We dropped it from severe to moderate. She was finally able to move her neck. She had excruciating pain, couldn't move her neck. That's gone. I remember one time she celebrated in Facebook. Imagine, I was able to go first time in 6 months into a shopping mall, go into a store, even try some clothes on, go back home, and I wasn't exhausted next day. It was such a big victory for her, and some of you probably can relate. A bonus, she used to hate cooking. Now she loves it. You'll see some video from my kitchen with food. It's important. The food is foundation for us. She also learned how to prevent reactivation, of course. Another comment, remember, she had encephalitis. All brain function was impaired. One day she posted in our Facebook group, wow, this is what it feels to have a happy brain. I want my happy brain to continue to be like that. This program gave me back my life. It's a lifesaver and worth every penny. For me, the most important thing is the empowerment, the freedom, the knowledge, the tools. It's not that hard. It's just different. Once you know it, you're invincible, just like her. One of the objections will be, what if it doesn't work for me? If you follow the process, you'll get better. If you do the modules first and you find that you're stumbling, there is a way to connect with me through monthly calls, right? Group calls. But there's also a way for students to connect with me one-on-one if needed, just for our students. So there's always a way for us to sit down together and re-strategize. Otherwise, the virus is predictable. I know the typical complications. I've worked through these with a lot of people. So I created bonuses. If you already know or suspect that you have a problem, you might jump into a bonus and read and see what it is. There are certain things that will decrease your ability to recover, okay, from the virus, plain and simple. And one of them is heavy metals, and especially heavy metal with Wi-Fi technology. Not a good combination, so you have a big bonus on that. The worst is toxic mold. Nobody likes this topic. We want to be in denial. We don't want to talk about it. It's hard. I'll give you all the solutions and gentle therapies and resources. There are co-infections like H. pylori, there's SIBO, there's all kinds of co-infections I discussed in the module because I'm a gut nutritionist, that's my background. And then there's a module on Wi-Fi technology. Obviously, it's a problem in our community. And then labs. You know the basics about EBV labs, but some of the complications when people don't get better is pernicious anemia, problems with iron that are not diagnosed properly, or Hashimoto's, low stomach acid that is not diagnosed properly. I have all the resources there for you so you know actually what to test. Like I said, we have a whole library. We have quite a lot of short, effective, focused shopping videos in a health food store. We have a weekend project for cooking in video demos. And we keep building more EBV support, like antibiotic support, dental support, home remedies, whatever our students ask, we add to the library. One more thing that we created, we really care about the community. We're going to see, we have the community board with different stories of our students during the process of healing. So I want you to read these stories because this could be your story. This is what happens. Real transformations. I wanted to say that it was the best spent money in the past 5 years. The amount of information, support, and understanding is nowhere near. Tons of investment, numerous doctors, healers, and practitioners. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is what we do. This makes my day. So if you've been overwhelmed and alone, no more. If you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, if you're ready to just turn off that virus, this is where it ends. This is where we start. You just have to take a leap of faith and join our community. My biggest concern is that you won't. That's my biggest concern. The online program has a lot of support. The only way you don't get better is if you don't follow and if you don't apply. We are there. I am there. This is the last story. We're coming to the end of the presentation. Rachel was a young professional and she struggled with EBV since pre-teenage years, a medical doctor, naturopathic doctor, functional doctors, all of it. Her family would take her everywhere. She had to move back with her parents. She was a young professional. She couldn't work anymore. So it was disheartening and it was demoralizing and really depressing. And so she followed the process. Dr. Kasia has literally changed my life. She has given me the tools to win the battle against EBV every single time. I feel empowered and hopeful for the first time in my life. I remember, I'll never forget, she posted a picture for us in our group, standing in front of a house. She just bought a house. And she says, I'm just a little nervous because I'm stressed out, but I know my protocol. I'm jumping right into the acute protocol, so I don't reactivate. Okay, my dear, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share who I am and what I do. What drives me is people like you struggling. I really want you to see that you can have your life back and you can have a dream life. I do know you don't want to settle. I know you tried all kinds of things. I know you want transformation, not more information to enlighten you. But the bottom line is, what do you want from your life? How do you want to live? And what's going to happen if you don't do anything? I told you we have to do things differently. So if you're willing to do things differently, step in. I'm going to be able to help you. But seriously, what's going to happen in a year if we don't? Are you going to get Hashimoto's, lupus? Are you going to get more depressed? Are you going to lose your job? Are you going to lose your marriage? I see that. Are you going to get on disability, neuropathy, vertigo? What's next? Where is it going to go next? Liver, spleen. So you're going to be thinking, is it worth my while? Is it worth my money? Let me assure you, it's worth every penny. My students say it's worth $3,000. Time, is it the right time? I really am afraid that if you don't step in, you're going to continue deteriorating. I was not able to help Marlena. I didn't know. I only learned about this virus after we lost her. I couldn't figure it out. And my heart is still hurting, but I can help you. So I want you to make that decision. Take a leap of faith so you can change your life. Stick with us for 3 months. Let's just do it. Press this button, go to the website, and invest in yourself and don't look back. Because the transformation only happens when you dream into future. You can't look back and compare what happened to you with EBV. That's a different trajectory and different experience. We do it differently moving forward. I so want you to have your dream life. Thank you so much. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine I can heal, I can move forward, I can have a life, I can do what I love again. I don't have to feel like I'm owned by the virus. I can be empowered and free. Just sit with it and dream what it would be to not be disabled by this darn virus. It's all within our reach, and I would be excited and delighted to see you on the other side, in our Facebook group, on the live calls, and hearing your stories. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I want you to have a life back.